Fantasy Football Happy Hour with Matthew Berry, served by Applebee's.
Happy Monday. Welcome to the Fantasy Football Happy Hour. And that's right, the king, Derrick Henry, drinks free after a monster performance and a blowout win over the Buffalo Bills on Sunday Night Football.
It was a Sunday night miracle for so many people after a tough, very interesting day. So in our show league, for example, I was in fact getting slapped like a grape, desperately hard. And it's probably likely going to be an L, but I have Rashee Rice on my team. We'll get into that. I have Josh Allen on my team. We'll get into that. But my point is Jay, who every single person that went off yesterday is on Jay's team, and so I was getting killed, and now I'm only mostly getting crushed.
Yes.
Derrick Henry brought me all the way back into. I've got a shot tonight. It's still a long shot, but I have a pulse.
You need one more miracle
tonight. I definitely need one more miracle, and so many people also. Derrick Henry, who I believe is 53 years old, I believe that's his age. It feels like it's at that age in running back years. Looked spry. I mean, that first run, whatever it was, just
87 yards.
87 yards. I was going to say it's 83. 87 yards for a touchdown. He's a physical freak of nature. He's a genetic freak of nature. He is King Henry.
Yeah.
All salute King Henry.
I think the two fastest speeds the players reached yesterday were Henry on that 87-yard touchdown run, and then Xavier Worthy on his touchdown, and they reached the same speed. Derrick Henry is almost 100 pounds heavier than Xavier Worthy.
I mean, it's just unbelievable. I mean, unbelievable. So
Yes.
Derrick Henry, just an amazing performance in a must-win game for the Ravens. And they did.
Also, he should have had more because he fumbled at the goal line.
He fumbled the goal line.
Which,
Could have had a third
I was
touchdown.
Very happy to see.
I was very upset about.
Yes, because at one point yesterday, Matthew, I was pulverizing you like a grape.
Yes.
Now it's still a light slapping, but
it's a little harder than a light slapping.
Yeah.
It's just you kind of toss me around a little bit like a rag doll, but I'm still getting back up.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Earlier, but prior to Derrick Henry, people were like, "Stop it! He's already dead."
Yes.
You know what I mean? And now I was just when I just one more time, I got up. There's a little bit,
Yes. Well, I tweeted about it, Matthew.
Did you?
Matchup. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
I talked about how much I love getting these notifications on my phone about Jordan Mason, and even Brandon Aiyuk had a big play at one point, then he quieted down. Justin Fields kept on running in scores. And what I loved is they pop up on my phone as notification, and I have my children as my background on my phone, and you can see with their faces, it's like they're mocking you. Because at that point, I was almost doubling you up. But
so
alas.
for people watching at home, so why don't you left to right? I was going to say you could name your kids.
Yes.
Maybe next time.
Yeah.
Well, on the left is Ella, in the middle is my youngest Rio, and then on the right is Remy, a little selfie that they took.
Yes.
And it now acts as a
it's
nice
adorable.
Little,
They're adorable. I would love to talk trash to you, but you know what? Honestly, I can't. Because when you bring the kids, when you bring your adorable little kids, that's
very smart. Very smart.
He's a brainy one. This one.
Yeah.
For all our sakes, let's hope for not another miracle, or else you're gonna never hear the end of it tomorrow.
It's tough.
It's okay.
Well, let's lay it out. So I think I'm 36 points ahead of you. You have Ken Walker, and you have JSN, and I have Tyler Lockett, who I'm not, don't love it, but Joe Mixon's hurt for me, so Tyler Lockett's
I basically need JSN to have a monster game and get down at the 1 yard line, and then Ken Walker punching it a couple of times. It's basically what I need to have
the worst
happen.
formula.
No, it's not the worst formula. I'm down 36. Josh Allen having a brutal game and Rashee Rice getting a 0.
You'd be like a 15-1 dog or something.
Yeah.
So unlucky,
Something
but you
like
got a
that.
chance.
It's not impossible, but unlikely. I think I think you're going to win this week. You have a good team.
Thank
you have
you.
a good team. By the way, and he also, we'll get into all the people. We'll get into all the players you have on your team because basically they all went off. All of our heroes basically are on Jay's team.
Let's start with the Ravens and Bills. Like we said, Derrick Henry, 24 carries, almost 200 yards, a touchdown. He had another touchdown and 3 receptions. I mean, just a massive, massive stretch for the King right now. And, of course, Derrick Henry sits across the top right now of the top fantasy performances from Week 4, Matthew.
Yeah, a bunch of these guys had unbelievable games. We'll get into it. Justin Fields, by the way, he's one of the guys that slapped me around like a grape. We'll talk about Nico Collins. I think if we drafted again today, is there a wide receiver you're taking over Nico Collins? I'm not convinced there is.
So.
DeAndre Swift, who we all thought was dead, We're done with DeAndre Swift. He has a monster
literally.
game.
In a game where Roshan Johnson scored a touchdown. That's what's even crazier.
The whole Bears game was sort of crazy. You saw my guy, number 5, Jayden Daniels, on that list. Well, Dontavian Wicks gets an opportunity with the unfortunate injury to Christian Watson. So we'll get into all that. But, yeah, I mean, you had a few names up there that you expected and a lot that you didn't.
Indeed.
Welcome to fantasy football.
One last thing from the Ravens game. Mark Andrews, 0 receptions on 1 target. I don't really know what is left to be said about Mark Andrews, who's literally not scoring any points.
For the last 2 weeks, he's run 15 routes. He has a total of 2 targets in the last 2 weeks. He's had 0 catches. Now, game script had something to do with this. They clearly came in and said, we're going to run the ball. And they did that effectively with Derrick Henry. You saw Lamar Jackson get involved. But even the underneath stuff, that was like Justice Hill. Whatever. Zay Flowers had a bad game as well. But the problem is just we have yet to see anything from Mark Andrews. At least with Travis Kelce, up till this past week, we were like, well, at least he's out there, right? At least Travis Kelce's out there. He's running routes and, this long track record of success. But Mark Andrews got injured, last year. He was banged up in the preseason as well. He got 1 target, which he dropped in this one. He ran only 9 routes. If he was named anything other than Mark Andrews, you would drop him. You would just be like, if it wasn't for the fact this guy's been one of the best tight ends in fantasy for multiple years, you would just drop him. There's no production. There's no production. There's no usage. There's no hope of usage. I'm going to look it up. I did a poll on Twitter earlier today. I'm going to see the results of it real quick. I'm going to look at this. Probably should have done this before the show, but what are you going to do?
That's all right. I can talk for a bit if you want, Matthew.
Please do, if you can.
So I think the key is that last night the Ravens played basically as many snaps with 1 wideout on the field as they did with 3. I understand Andrews is a tight end, but I think it just speaks to the identity of this team that this is Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. And they were so effective playing that way the past 2 weeks that this is going to be the identity. And outside of that, Zay Flowers is clearly the number 1 guy. Isaiah Likely in the first half when the game was in the balance, he was playing more snaps than Mark Andrews. So, I don't really see what the upside is anymore. And we thought that he might be injured. Maybe he is carrying something, but I guess it doesn't really matter at this point because there's just no production whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, whatever. I mean, at this moment, about 9,000 people have voted. I put it up about an hour ago. And 42% of them have said they want to drop Mark Andrews. 52% saying they're benching, but you're keeping him. Only 6% say they still believe. If there is one positive here, it is they are at Cincinnati, then home to Washington, at Tampa Bay, at Cleveland. The next 2, again, I know my Commanders had played good defense yesterday, but generally speaking, those are 2 pretty good matchups. The problem is you can't start them, right? So it's we'll get into this on the waiver wire show whether you want to drop them or not. But you're not starting him, so you see if he does anything against Cincinnati, and then maybe you start him against Washington in Week 6. But it's
that's where we're at.
It's brutal. It's brutal, and I think there's a chance, and I couldn't put a percentage on it, but there is a chance we have seen the last of Mark Andrews' elite fantasy tight end. It's just sometimes, it's unfortunate. We like him, friend of the show, but
it happens to everybody. Except
Derrick
Henry.
Except Derrick Henry.
This will be happening
He's the only guy that defies time.
Yes.
Exactly.
So, all right, our next game, Matthew.
Him and Joe Flacco.
Another big win for your Commanders. Jayden Daniels looking pretty good. Yep.
Come on.
Another Monday with the jersey on.
I thought, and I may do this every single Monday that they win. Because every single week it's another thing. He's now setting NFL records, Connor.
Yes.
He's the highest completion percentage of any quarterback in their first 4 games of season. Not a rookie. Any quarterback in NFL history. He's completing over 82% of his passes. His past 2 games, he's had 6 total incompletions. Just 6. You see it there on your screen for those that are listening. Washington Commanders PR put out this tweet. Quarterback Jayden Daniels has an 82.1 completion percentage through 4 career games. That is the highest completion percentage of any quarterback through 4 games since Tom Brady had a 79.2, not as good, completion percentage.
Good company.
Yeah, I'm just saying. I added the not as good. But anyway,
they should have, though.
Right.
The Commanders.
I'm just saying.
It's a miss from their PR department.
Yeah. Anytime you have a positive stat and you're like, oh, by the way, this is better than Tom Brady, you're good company. Fire away. He's just, again, he's doing it on 3rd down. He's doing it on 4th down. He's getting the tough yards. He's also running. He's a fantasy revelation as well. He's now had at least 24 fantasy points in 3 of 4 games. He ranks 3rd in passer rating this season as well, which is just more of an NFL thing. But, like, again, he's running, he's throwing. Once again in this one, 47 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown. We liked Jayden Daniels as a fantasy asset in the beginning of the season. He was on the preseason love list. I had him as a top 10 quarterback because we knew the rushing would be there. What I didn't expect was the accuracy. I don't think anyone could have predicted 82% completion percentage through 4 games. And I made this argument last night on the Football Night in America pod, the show that we do, the digital show that we do after Sunday Night Football, which is I would argue that Jayden Daniels is playing with a worse supporting cast this year than he did in his last year at LSU.
You look at League Neighbors and Brian Thomas.
I'm just saying, right?
Now.
He's got versus, he's got Terry McLaurin and Olamide Zaccheaus.
Right.
And Noah Brown and
but
Zach
Ertz.
Ertz.
Cliff Kingsbury. And that's been
100%.
That's been amazing for Jayden Daniels.
And they have run the ball well, and they have protected him. That's the thing. That was one of the anti-Jayden Daniels arguments was the line. Could the line hold up? And through 4 games, Jay, they have.
Yep. They're plus 240 to win the division, which is jarring. The Commanders. Look at their schedule. There's a material chance that the Commanders are going to be like 7-3. They're 3-point favorites at the Browns, so the market believes the Commanders are real. These Monday shows are very tough. They're getting very tough because a lot of these Commanders victories. The only saving grace for me is that I put a large wager on Dan Quinn to win Coach of the Year a few days ago, which partly was because I thought it was value and that 18-1 didn't reconcile with their price to win the division. It was partly as a coping mechanism to kind of prevent against kind of your emotions destroying my Mondays.
I completely understand that. Fair enough. They're home to Cleveland, then they're at Baltimore, home to Carolina, home to Chicago. They're at home 3 of the next 4 games, and I would suspect they'll be favored. You told me they're already favored against the Browns. I would suspect they're favored against the Panthers and the Bears. So
yep, they will be. They'll be probably favored at the Giants the next week after that. They may even be favored home Pittsburgh the week following that. So
we don't know.
In 5 of the next 6
hail
games.
Commanders, hail victory as well. And I think lost in all the Jayden Daniels hype, rightfully so, is Brian Robinson, who now has 100 or more rushing yards in 2 of his past 3 games. Another guy that was on my love list in the preseason, the people said, you're being a homer. And I'm like, I don't think you guys understand. Cliff Kingsbury likes to run when he gets in close. One of my bold predictions was 15 touchdowns for Brian Robinson this year, if you remember that as well. And I said he's definitely doing double-digit touchdowns. Like, he's on his way, guys. I mean, I think he's I believe he's scored in every single game this year as well. He's being used in the passing game. No Austin Eckler in this game, so double-digit target share in this game and in 3 or 4 games so far this year. 3rd straight game with multiple goal line rushes. Again, they like to run when they get in close on Cliff. So give a lot of credit to Cliff Kingsbury because the Commanders have become a very good running team, and it's not just Jayden Daniels running around making plays happen. Like they're running the RPO to perfection.
Right.
Connor.
The threat of Jayden's running is opening things up for Brian Robinson, rather than just obviously being a very static offense and just kind of smashing him into the A gap for 2 yards every play. There's so much more space now because of the threat of Jayden Daniels.
Yeah, I mean, and Robinson has capitalized on those. He's heading into tonight. He's the 10th best running back in fantasy for this week, and I would argue that if you were redrafting again today, like he's a top 12 fantasy running back.
One tough performance to come out of this game. Ride or die Kyler Murray, 16-22 for 142 yards, 1 touchdown, no rushing production. Just a real bad day at the office for Arizona all around.
He's had back-to-back games with under 15 fantasy points. He's averaging just 12.4 over the last 2 weeks. The weird one is they didn't run in this one. The first 3 games he'd had at least 5 rushing attempts, and this one he had 1. Like, I don't know what happened for whatever. I mean, credit to the defensive line of the Commanders and Dan Quinn and the game plan they put together, and obviously Cliff knows Kyler well and probably, probably walked down the hall and said, hey, by the way, just some things to think about here. But yeah, this is, for all the praise I want to give myself for Jayden Daniels and for Brian Robinson, right now it's a mixed bag there on my ride or die. But ride or die means ride or freaking die. I am sticking by Kyler Murray. I believe better days are ahead. They're at San Francisco next week, at Green Bay, home to the Chargers, at Miami. Those are a lot of games. Maybe not Miami. We'll see about the Chargers. But the next 2 games, they should be down. They should be in negative game script. They should be. Now, they were negative game script against the Washington Commanders, and they didn't do anything. But I have to feel like better days are coming for Kyler Murray, who, again, has never finished outside the top 10 as a fantasy quarterback, right, on a points-per-game basis. So I'm sticking by Kyler Murray, and I'd even say go buy low if you can. I'm sticking by him. It is what it is. Sorry, America. There you go.
All noted.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm not bailing on it. I'm owning it, and I'm sticking with it.
He's QB9. It's fine.
I was going to say, it's week 4.
Yeah.
There's no reason to run.
It's all right.
Yeah.
No reason to
All
take
calm
cover.
down.
Yeah.
Chiefs Chargers, though.
You have no idea. My mentions, they've all got the pitchforks out.
Oh, really?
The pitchforks are out.
They wait in the weeds.
You
for
have no idea, the people.
Too bad.
Yeah.
Two mediocre games, and they're on you.
TP.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's not just that. I mean, it's other stuff, too.
Okay.
Hey,
Fair
what
enough.
I can do. But other pick, I never get credit for the good picks. It's
Yeah.
when the picks go wrong, they are right there with the pitchforks.
That's the life of working in sports.
I suppose that is. It's a tough lesson I just learned.
Yes. Wow. It's nice, though, it took you that long.
Yeah.
Chiefs at Chargers. The biggest news to come out of this game, of course, Rashee Rice carted off with an apparent knee injury. Andy Reid already said it's not good. Patrick Mahomes, after the game, spoke specifically about the injury to Rashee Rice. Take a listen.
I didn't know exactly what happened because obviously I was trying to make the tackle, but I know Rashee and how tough he is. So him being down like that, I knew it wasn't good. All we can do is pray that the X-rays in my eyes and stuff like that are better than what it looked. But next man up until he's back.
Just
a brutal injury. There's no way around
the
it.
whole
For
thing
a
was
guy that's
awful.
been a fantasy superstar this year.
He's been nothing short of fantastic. I mean, I was in a guillotine league draft. You can draft all along with guillotines, and I was in a guillotine league draft the other week, and Rashee Rice won in the first round. He was a top 5 fantasy wide receiver.
That person's chopped.
And no question.
Adios.
There were a lot of tough performances yesterday from big name stars. Rice's 0 being one of them as well. He was the second best wide receiver in fantasy points per game leading into this game. This is top 2 fantasy wide receiver, and there was nothing that you thought would stop that. And so, just a brutal play all around. By the way, bad throw by Mahomes. Like he overthrows the guy. So if he just doesn't throw that, you know what I mean? And then feels like Patrick's saying he's trying to make a tackle. He went low. Like it didn't. It's a brutal loss for Rashee Rice. Here's the thing that I will say: if there's no positives here. And by the way, we're taping this on Monday morning. We don't know the extent. By the time you see this show, we may very well have news on the results of the MRI that he's getting today and whether he is going to miss the rest of the season, whether he's just going to miss significant time, or maybe it was just a scare. We all are hoping for the best as you see the video here of this play. I don't want to get into the Mahomes thing, but I'll just say this. For the Chiefs, last year, Rashee Rice didn't play more than 60% of the snaps until week 8. So the fact of the matter is that Rashee Rice, the first half of the season, which last year was his rookie year, he was a part-time player. He only knew part of the route tree. And so they started expanding it week by week. And that's, I think, is ultimately what's going to happen with Xavier Worthy. That's the only chance they have. Now, I'm sure they'll kick the tires on some potential trades, we were talking last night. Florida was asked about Devontae Adams. Would Mark Davis trade him in the division?
I don't think so.
Doesn't feel like he would, but you never know. Yeah, and you see Noah Gray there. Could they go to more 2 tight end sets? Could they try to go more 12 personnel? What will happen here is that they're just going to mix and match. But I think that with the exception of Travis Kelce and maybe the running back, we'll get into it, I don't believe, until Xavier Worthy shows some consistency, I don't believe there is a fantasy relevant player that you feel good about week in, week out on the Chiefs, with the exception of Travis Kelce because of how bad tight end is, right? And we saw a nice game from him yesterday finally. Other than Kelce, and maybe the running back if you're desperate. Worthy should be rostered in every league. But other than that, and by the way, I include Patrick Mahomes in that statement.
Yeah. No, I'm with you.
I think combos, yeah.
Yeah, he's going to be. It's a similar spot to last year where Patrick Mahomes was, by the end of the season, when he was struggling so much to put up production, there was just no explosive element. Now, he does have Xavier Worthy this season for more of an explosive element, but there are going to be weeks where you're starting Geno Smith over Patrick Mahomes, starting Baker Mayfield over Patrick Mahomes. Do you think, Connor, that Worthy can expand his route tree enough to replicate anything that Rice did in the second half last year, understanding the different players?
No, not this year, personally, just being honest. Look at how they used Rashee Rice. We talked about this a lot on the show, how he was almost used as a tight end with how tightly they'd play him to the formation, and then they just have him run a shallow cross or a slant in the middle of the field. Because if Kelsey's getting a lot of attention, well, then the other side is going to be open. So That's not Xavier Worthy.
Yeah.
Xavier Worthy's 160 pounds. He can run like the wind. He's going to have some big plays. He's going to have some big weeks for you here and there. But I think you're going to funnel 9 to 10 targets through Xavier Worthy. It's not happening. It's not.
I know. That's the concern. And so, I think what they're going to have to do is they're going to have to grind it out. Like, they're going to have to. I mean, they were lucky to win that game against the Chargers, and that was a Chargers team that had no Joe Alt, that had no Rashawn Slater, that had no Joey Bosa, that had Justin Herbert on like half a leg.
Right.
Like they barely beat the Chargers, and so I want to wrap this up on Mahomes. I know we're going long here, but I think this is important. This is now since the start of last year, so we've got a 20-game sample size since the start of last season. Patrick Mahomes, on a points-per-game basis, is QB 13. Like, in a 12-team league, Patrick Mahomes is not a starter. Like, since the start of last year. This isn't like, he's had a couple of bad games. Like, since the start of last year, it is now, going back to last year, it is now 9 straight games below 17 fantasy points for Patrick Mahomes. And I get it. He is as brilliant a man to play the position as has ever existed in the NFL. He's unbelievable, right? Like, he does things that are just like, whoa. But, like, from a fantasy perspective, like, the production just hasn't been there. And now, without Pacheco, without Rashee Rice, I just don't see a scenario where he suddenly turns that around and becomes the fantasy superstar that he was earlier in his career, because they're not going to want to increase the snaps of Travis Kelce. They're still 4-0. They're still first place in the division. Right. They still want a three-peat Super Bowl. And so they still need to manage Travis Kelce's snaps. And, they'll piece it together. Andy Reid's as good a coach as there is in the history of the NFL. But just in terms of for our purposes, it's hard to see, we know we can go there for consistent fantasy production.
Yep. Just quickly, if there's one Chiefs running back you want, who is it?
I think it's Kareem Hunt.
Yep, I agree.
That's the one thing. Listen, Carson Steele had a bad fumble early in the game.
Again.
Kareem Hunt, he did as well. Feels like, quickly on Kareem Hunt, he got a 10% target share. He got 67% of the team's running back touches. He got 2 of the 3 red zone touches as well. I do still think it's going to be a running back by committee. They do weird stuff, but if you're the highest ranked Chiefs running back I'll have next week will be Kareem Hunt. As you see it there on your screen as well. P. Ryan did get the touchdown, but Hunt had been in for the previous couple of plays. He'd gotten a couple of chances at it, didn't get in, so they brought P. Ryan in. He punches it in, but ultimately, I think Kareem Hunt his emergence is more of a hurt to Carson Steele than it is to Samaje Perine, which is one of the reasons why when we were talking back when the Pacheco injury happened, we liked Perine a little bit more than Steele because we thought his role was safer. But yes, to your point, if you're starting a Chiefs running back next week, it's Kareem Hunt.
Moving on to a thrilling game, that was the Vikings-Green Bay. Really a thrilling second half in this one. The Vikings hold on for the win against the Packers. Sam Darnold, 20 of 28 for 275 yards, 3 touchdowns. Feels like every week Sam Darnold throws for 3 touchdowns. Justin Jefferson, after the game, had a lot of praise for what Darnold's brought to the Minnesota offense.
He's been great. He's been leading us to these victories. We can't do it without him and his leadership and his ability to just be poised, just like you said. And it doesn't matter what part of the game it is. We always just try to be in each other's ear, giving us each other confidence. Try to remind each other to hold on to the ball, take care of the ball, and let's get points on the board. So I feel like our offense is very dialed in, connected. Our chemistry is very well. And I feel like our play out there, it shows.
Jay, Minnesota's been one of the, if not the biggest story in the NFL this season. The undefeated Vikings on the back of Sam Darnold and, quite frankly, just great coaching from this team as well.
Yeah, definitely. And look, Darnold's been incredible. If the MVP vote were held today, Sam Darnold may well win that. Josh Allen would be in that discussion as well. Jayden Daniels, by the way, would finish top 3 in MVP, I think, based on the first 4 weeks. But projecting forward, Connor, I think this is still a very unsettled, has negative connotations, but I think this is an unsettled offense in terms of what we can expect going forward. I think what is most real about the Vikings and why they warrant being the favorite in the NFC North now is the defense. The defense is incredible. Brian Flores is incredible. Darnold has been playing very well. I also think there are elements where Darnold is still kind of getting away with it, and we've seen some of the Darnold moments. I don't think this is going to continue. I think it's going to continue at a level where he is startable in fantasy. He is going to be able to commandeer this offense at a very competent level, but I just look at the box scores for these Viking games every week, and it's like, why is Justin Jefferson not? I know he's getting the stats and he's getting the touchdowns, but like, why isn't he getting the targets? Like, it's a very strange offense at the moment. It's very democratic and very egalitarian at the moment. From a fantasy perspective, it would almost be simpler if Darnold was just throwing to Jefferson 14 times a game, but he's not doing that. So, look, you're starting Justin Jefferson, you're starting Aaron Jones. When Hockenson comes back, you'll start him. Darnold is going to be viable most weeks, but I still don't know what this is going to look like a month from now.
Rest of the season, Sam Darnold or Patrick Mahomes?
Patrick Mahomes, still. Yeah, I still take him the greatest quarterback of all time. I understand, but I think there's a lot of scope. I don't think the Chiefs, what this roster looks like right now, is what it's going to look like in 2 months. I think that will add a receiver.
Potentially. Potentially.
They have to.
Potentially.
Yeah.
But the fact that that's a conversation, the fact that that's a legit question is insane.
I think they're on the same tier.
He's QB7. You know what I mean? Sam Darnold, for this week, QB7. Multiple touchdown passes in every game this season.
Yeah, I just like everyone buying into Sam Darnold is a great story so far. The Darnold game is coming. He's going to have a 3-pick game at some point in the next couple of months, but he can still provide other stats that withstand that from a fantasy perspective. Okay. He's having a great season.
Okay, but the counter might be also is that, 20 and a half fantasy points yesterday. Yeah. Mahomes hasn't had that game this year.
That's fair.
I mean, you know what I mean? I'm just... Anyway, my point is that the fact that it's a legit question, I've said this before, I will say this again, Sam Darnold is a top 12 fantasy quarterback the rest of the season. He's a legit QB1. Even if you don't believe totally in Sam Darnold, you believe in Kevin O'Connell's offense, you believe in the balance of that offense, you believe in Justin Jefferson, the run game. And by the way, they're getting T.J. Hawkinson back, a couple games.
Addison played well too.
Yes,
Naylor is a real guy. Yeah, it's a very good offense. It's a very good team.
On the other side, Jordan Love walked into the stadium wearing a Brett Favre jersey, and boy, did he have a Brett Favre performance. I mean, Jordan Love here, 54 pass attempts. He completes 32 of them, almost 400 yards, 4 touchdowns, and the 3 interceptions, Matthew. From a fantasy perspective, QB3 finish right now for Jordan Love before we head into the Monday Night Football doubleheader. It
was ugly, but ultimately all the stats still count, and you're happy about this for Jordan Love. They're at the Rams next week, then home to Arizona, home to Houston, at Jacksonville. The schedule lines up really nicely here for Jordan Love. I know a tough loss for the Packers as well. They are 0-2 under Jordan Love. They are 2-0 with Malik Willis. I've seen some of the talk there, but let's not get crazy. Jordan Love's very good. He had a bad half against a very good defense, by the way. The Vikings defense
off of a serious injury.
is legit.
He came back way faster than any of us expected.
Way faster than anyone expected, and faced a very, very tough defense. To me, the bigger story here, because, Jordan Love is QB3 on the week, is Jayden Reed and Dontavian Wicks. Christian Watson gets injured in this game. Sounds like he's going to miss some time. IR is a possibility.
Significant ankle injury.
Yeah, significant ankle injury for Christian Watson. So you sit here and you look at the receiving leaders, Jayden Reed, Dontavian Wicks, and those are the two guys I want to talk about here as well. He's played 2 games with Jordan Love, and Jayden Reed's finished as a top 2 wide receiver in both games, averaging over 30 fantasy points per game, 130 or more receiving yards in both those games. And so they're throwing the ball to him. They're throwing it to him deep. They're finding different ways to get him the ball. Jayden Reed, I think, is rostered in almost every league. But Dontavian Wicks is out there, and we'll talk about him more tomorrow, Connor. But just curious, what do you see from Dontavian Wicks? Because I think the anti-Wicks argument in the preseason was they've got 4 guys, and they're just going to mix and match, and it's going to be hard to get consistent fantasy production out of any of them. But while unfortunate, the injury to Watson does open up more playing time for Wicks.
And with Wicks, it feels like Love is more comfortable going to him consistently, where Watson felt like this big play threat. With Wicks, it's somebody that he's looking his way a lot. And now the route participation is only going to go even up more. We were trying to decipher with this Packers offense, like who's going to actually be consistent. We knew Jayden Reed would be that guy. I'm buying into Wicks in this offense right now. I think he's a guy Love can lean on in the short, intermediate, and even push the ball down the field to him at times as well. So the arrow is pointing significantly up for Wicks.
There were 6 end zone targets against Minnesota. Wicks got 4 of them.
Yeah, crazy second half script, but Green Bay will throw like this at times.
There's been 6 career games where he's gotten at least 5 targets. He's averaging almost 15 points per game. I'm a fan of Wicks as well.
All right, Jags Texans in a season for Jacksonville that just continues to implode. C.J. Stroud has the big day, Jay. 27 of 40, 345 yards, 2 touchdowns. It felt like at least half that production went to Nico Collins.
It did, and to Matthew's earlier point, I think Nico, if you're drafting again, he is probably the #1 wide receiver in fantasy. Again, this is...
Him or Malik Neighbors.
Yeah, seriously.
The volume's insane for both.
Again, Stroud, he has the 40 pass attempts. They were trailing late in this one, so they were throwing a lot. I don't know exactly what this offense is going to look like when it is fully healthy, because we've only really seen that for one game. That was against the Colts in week 1. I think ultimately in his soul, Bobby Slowick wants to run the ball. It's just harder to do that when Cam Akers is your lead guy, as opposed to Joe Mixon, who presumably will be back next week. Tank Dell will come back. But from a fantasy perspective, I'm not even sure how much that matters. Like, you're starting Nico every week, you're starting Diggs every week, you're starting Mixon, Stroud. It's just really Tank Dell. He's probably the one where I just don't know where he's going to fit in at this point.
Yeah, I mean, that's the question, I think, but it sort of doesn't matter. The Nico Collins, 38.5% target share. He leads the NFL in receiving yards, 7 end zone targets over the last 2 games. Again, he's just not a famous big-name player like CeeDee Lamb, but he should be. He should be. The only question coming into the preseason was, it's not like he wasn't drafted super high, but one of the questions was like, well, they got Tank Dell, they got Stephon Diggs, is it this 3-headed committee, everything like that. And I think as you see it there on your screen, like, over 100 receiving yards more than Malik Neighbors. By the way, Juwan Jennings being 3rd on that list is just so insane. Jayden Reed 5th on that list of receiving leaders. But, he's nothing short of spectacular. Nico Collins, again, rest of the season, he's the elite of the elite. He would be a first-round pick if you were drafting the rest of the way.
Definitely.
The good news for Jacksonville, if you're looking for some, is that Brian Thomas Jr. is going to be a hell of a player in this league right now. I mean, 6 of 9, 86 yards and a touchdown. I think most importantly, Matthew, this is now back-to-back games with 9 targets for the rookie.
He's had at least a 20% target share in every game this year by 1. He is earning targets. Targets are earned, and so they're also, by the way, these aren't dink and dunks. Like of the 9 targets you mentioned, 4 of them were deep passes. So they're targeting him deep. There's clearly a connection between Trevor Lawrence and Brian Thomas, and a lot is not going right for Jacksonville, but Brian Thomas is one of the few bright spots as well, and should be a consistent starter in fantasy the rest of the way.
Our last game.
It was also nice to see Christian Kirk, by the way, get back on track. Back-to-back games now with 10 targets, at least 10 targets and at least 7 receptions. So feels like at least the passing attack for the Jaguars is finally okay, all right, we're getting there. Finally. They looked better this week than they have previously.
Yeah, they were a competent NFL team this week.
Yes.
Despite the suspect press conference.
And they're home to the Colts next week, which is not a defense that scares you.
Yeah.
Our last game here, Bengals-Panthers. As much as the Panthers come up short here, they're a competent offense now as well, Jay. But I think the story in this one is that I feel like the Chase Brown game was on its way eventually. There was flashes from him. Now he got the volume in this one to have a big week. Yeah, he did. Still, fantasy nightmare. This box score, you see 15 carries Chase Brown, 15 carries Zack Moss. I think this is going to be difficult to predict going forward. I think the main thing, though, is that the Bengals kind of are who we thought they were, where they are an explosive offense. Joe Burrow looks fine. He's back seemingly to full health, and the defense is still very bad. So it's going to be fantasy-wise. I think there are a lot of players each week who you're going to be able to start on the Bengals. Obviously, Burrow, Chase, Higgins, but then also Brown and Moss are probably both startable. That's what I was going to say. You say fantasy nightmare. I disagree. I think we got 2 viable fantasy running backs. If you're telling me both guys are going to get 15 touches, now game script helped there. But the fact is that both guys, I think, are high-end flexes, viable starters. To your point about Chase Brown, look, before we start throwing dirt on Zack Moss, it's worth noting Zack Moss played 58% of the snaps. He played more than Chase Brown. He was on third down, 9 of the 14 third down. Zack Moss was out there, 9 of the 14 third downs. He actually was on 3 of the 4 plays from the 1-yard line. Zack Brown. Now, Chase Brown Chase Brown ended up getting the scores, but Zack Moss was out there. They used both guys a couple of times. To your point about Chase Brown here, though, career highs in touches, fantasy points, and snap rate. It's been going up week after week after week. And so in terms of how I rank it, I think this is what I thought it would look like in the preseason, that you'd kind of have a 1A, 1B, whereas previous to this, it was just sort of it's all Zack Moss. And I'm not expecting 2 touchdowns from Chase Brown, but it was really nice to see. I think both guys are viable flexes. I will have Zack Moss ranked slightly higher next week, but again, the difference between them is very small. The fact that Zack Moss is still out there on third downs, I just wouldn't get skewed by the 2 touchdowns. Right? Touchdowns are fluky sometimes. They definitely still like Moss around the goal line as well. Just quickly, do you think it's weird that Jamar Chase has 24 targets in 4 games? It's 41st in the NFL. It's a little bit. I think that's somewhat basically
think maybe they felt like he was rusty. Like the first game against
disaster
against New England was a disaster. Burrow may not have been healthy. Was Chase, who missed much of training camp, was he a little bit rusty? The offense is always out of sync. Under Zach Taylor, they've started slow every single year. So, you would think they get him a little bit ball more. It was nice to see T. Higgins back as well. He got involved. They're still figuring out the offense. Like, they didn't have T. Higgins. Like, that, Anyway, it'll be fine. You're starting, for our purposes, you're starting Chase and Higgins every single week.
From the Panthers side of things, Matthew, good call on Diontae Johnson. He gets 13 targets, 83 yards, and a touchdown come with those targets. And a nice week for the rookie, Xavier Legette, with Adam Thielen now on the IR.
One of my shot-for-shots on Fantasy Football pregame was top 10 at their position, Andy Dalton and Diontae Johnson. Dalton didn't get there, though he had a solid game. You'd have preferred Dalton to like Josh Allen or Kyler Murray for sure. But Diontae Johnson, at least as we head into Monday Night Football, is there. He's wide receiver 10. He now has a 35% target share with Andy Dalton in 2 games. 7 end zone targets in those 2 games. He actually leads the NFL with 9 end zone targets this year. He's a wide receiver 1. Like, as long as Andy Dalton is under center for the Panthers, Diontae Johnson is a wide receiver 1. He's a very good wide receiver in the NFL. He earns targets. Andy Dalton is a competent enough quarterback to get him the ball. And they're going to be a negative game script a decent amount as well. So if you hung tough with Diontae Johnson, good job, because he's going to be a thing, or he's going to be a wide receiver 1. But Xavier Legette, you mentioned him as well, 25% target share, 88% route participation for the rookie. This is a first-round rookie. I thought he looked good, and clearly in terms of the pecking order, him over Jonathan Mingo for who's going to get more targets with Adam Thielen out.
And one more thing from this offense, Jay, Chuba Hubbard, just the crazy volume continues. 18 carries, over 100 yards. He had 4 catches. I think a lot of people were expecting Jonathan Brooks to come back at some point and just take over this backfield. I don't think Chuba Hubbard's going anywhere.
Yes, Chuba Hubbard, a member of Slap Them Like a Grape, a bona fide grape slapper in Chuba.
He slapped me around, much like a grape.
Exactly right. And I think even when Brooks comes back, Chuba Hubbard, until proven otherwise, is probably still an RB2 and can be started with confidence.
I haven't even heard any news of Brooks even rehabbing.
We are now through week 4, and it felt like, miss a minimum like 4 games, and then just nothing. So, and do you rush him now? Because that's the bigger thing.
Yeah.
What's the reason to rush the guy?
There's no resurrection. The season, you're not. He's part of the future. Like, you got 1 win on the season. Like, and you're getting good production from the position already. So I agree with you. Listen, if you have Brooks on your team and he's sitting in an IR spot, fine. You wait. But like if he's taking up just a bench spot,
and you're desperate for someone else, it's probably okay.
You have some decisions to make.
All right, how about some injuries we're tracking to come out of week 4? We talked about Rashee Rice. We'll have an official update on that. Jonathan Taylor dealing with an ankle. That can go a couple different ways, so just stick with us throughout the week, and we'll have specifics as we get them. Anthony Richardson dealing with the hip injury. It sounded like in a dire situation he could have came back into this game, so Richardson should have the green light next week. Christian Watson is going to miss time with his ankle. Taysom Hill is just adding up a laundry list of injuries right now, and he adds to that this week. Cordarrelle Patterson comes out of the game with the ankle injury as well.
They're beat up in Pittsburgh, after Najee, because Jaylen Warren didn't play in that game. Patterson was making some noise there. It'll be interesting on Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor, the reporting on that is super weird because they're like a mild high ankle sprain.
That's not a thing.
Exactly. There's no such thing as a mild high ankle sprain. Jonathan Taylor's going to miss time. If it is a high ankle sprain, Jonathan Taylor's missing time.
And if he doesn't miss time, he's not going to be Jonathan Taylor if he comes back in a week
and it's
off
not,
a high ankle.
If he doesn't miss time, it's not a high ankle sprain. Either way, we'll talk about Trey Benson tomorrow. But a lot of interesting injuries in Indianapolis. Joe Flacco looked good, by the way.
Dominate this NFL season.
Don't say that to me.
With the Fantasy Life Plus subscription. Get weekly rankings, start sit advice, DFS analysis, and betting tools. Use promo code SEASON20 for 20% off. Go to fantasylife.com/rotoworld to learn more.
If you had this tool in the preseason, you'd have Nico Collins on your team, just so you know.
I have Nico Collins on my team.
There you go. I'm telling you.
Thanks to Fantasy Life Plus subscription.
Yeah, we were much higher than consensus.
What a company man.
I'm just saying.
Oh, man. We're taking our first break. When we're back, Weekend Warriors and the scariest of Sunday Scaries right after this.
Our Halloween costume for this year. That's pretty good. Good luck being that suave and debonair.
Old, but still has value.
You still got it.
Yeah.
You're Adam Thielen.
There you go. That's there it is.
You pulled it off well.
Yeah.
Really terrifying. You got the fresh
stuff.
berry fade going on.
That's Joe, and he, I got to be honest, he's rocking it all There he is. There. Look at him. What's up? Like, seriously, which one is which?
I'm the real Matthew Berry.
We are eating good in the neighborhood this Sunday when the Fantasy Football pregame show broadcasts live from Applebee's in Pittsburgh. The restaurant at 6570 Steubenville Pike will open just before pregame kicks off at 11. Come on out early to start your tailgate party with us this Sunday and ask your start-sit questions ahead of the big Sunday night football matchup between the Steelers and Cowboys. And if you're not in Pittsburgh, you can watch the show live on Peacock and, of course, on the NBC Sports YouTube channel.
Rumors that Najee Harris will be in there at attendance.
Yeah, you should absolutely come there. Jay will give you personal bets if you're a degenerate like us. Sure. He'll give you some good bets. We'll have Lawrence Jackson out there as well.
George Savarese will be talking golf.
Yeah, it'll be a great time. Great time. Yeah. If anyone, again, I did this last year. If anyone wants to show up dressed as me, they drink and eat for free.
For sure. Last year was a little scary. A little bit frightening.
Yeah, or honestly, anyone that I'll buy a drink to anyone that shows up, dressed in costume.
Sure.
But it'll be a great time at Applebee's. Looking forward to seeing everyone in Pittsburgh. Hope you guys come out and support the show if you enjoy what we do, or even if you tolerate it.
There's not a lot of promos where if you just don't have a lot of hair, you get to go drink for free. It's really remarkable. Like if you're watching this show and you're like, you know what, I can pull this off.
Yeah.
Go drink and eat for free.
Well, that guy Joe in the promo, I honestly think he does have hair. I think that was a bald wig.
Well, he really honest with you. He was in
Joe's a nice guy. It's a very frightening visual. It's like a Robin Williams in 1 hour photo type of vibe. Deep cut for anyone who gets up.
Fair enough.
Weekend Warriors. Justin Fields back on the list here. Completes 22 of 34 for over 300 yards and a touchdown. But, of course, as you always get with the Justin Fields experience, Matthew, the 2 rushing touchdowns are what leads to the QB1 finish as it stands.
Fourth best fantasy game of his career. Back-to-back games now with 18 or more fantasy points. He has a rushing touchdown in both. They're finally kind of unleashing Justin Fields and letting him do Justin Fields kind of things. He's had 5 goal-to-go rushing attempts over the past 2 weeks. By the way, his completion percentage is pretty high as well. He's playing well. Russell Wilson ain't getting this job back, and Justin Fields is among the people that slapped me around like a grape. He's on Jay's roster, much to my chagrin.
Right behind him, Jay, Baker Mayfield with the QB2 slot right now. 347 yards, 2 touchdowns, and Baker runs for a touchdown as well. It's been a little bit of a theme at times this year.
Yeah, Baker Mayfield also on Slap Them Like Grape. Can't even get on the field.
I know.
The team is too loaded.
Must be nice.
It drives me crazy.
I start Justin Herbert on one leg. They get Taylor Heineke in emergency situations.
I think I have 4 of the top 10 quarterbacks, 4 of the top 12 quarterbacks. That's Sam Darnold on my bench.
Yeah, Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield on his bench.
If anyone wants to trade me Derrick Henry for a quarterback, I'd be more than welcome. Baker Mayfield's QB3 on the season. And look, I don't think he's going to end as QB3, but I think what he's doing is not entirely unsustainable in terms of the big thing with Baker is that Chris Godwin is just way better than he was a season ago. And I think he's being utilized more optimally. So look, Baker probably not going to be top 3 quarterback rest of the way, but certainly a starter every week.
1,000%. He's only Sam Darnold has more touchdown passes, 18 or more fantasy points in 3 or 4 games this season, and he looks the part. He's playing great football.
Matthew, just when we left him for dead, DeAndre Swift, 16 carries, 93 yards, touchdown, 7 catches, 72 yards. It's really unbelievable at this point. Great week for DeAndre Swift.
It's a great week, and what we don't know here is it does feel like week by week, Shane Waldron is trying to figure out this offense and what will work for him. And so, listen, certainly a great matchup with the Rams, but I think what's positive here is, 23 touches, 32% target share. He had the big run, obviously, as well, but just, he was involved in every facet of the offense. This is the DeAndre Swift that they thought they were getting, right? When they signed him to the big contract. They're home to Carolina next week, then they're home to Jacksonville. They got a bye, and then they're at Washington. It's a nice schedule with two back-to-back home games here for DeAndre Swift, who suddenly is back in on the RB2 radar, because he's being used in all facets of the game. in a game that they won. So my expectation is they'll go back to this.
Our last weekend warrior, Jay, Jordan Mason, 24 carries, tops 120 yards and a touchdown. He also added 37 receiving yards this week.
Another great slapper, Jordan Mason. Just
slapping.
This is okay.
You don't understand.
Now I actually feel bad. And I never feel bad for you in fantasy.
I know, but do you see what happened to me, Jordan? Like, it's all of it.
The quarterback hoarding is one thing, but to just have Jordan Mason.
It's all of it. The whole thing is ridiculous. It's awful.
My team is real, and it is magnificent. Jordan Mason.
Quote. Your team is real and spectacular. That's
right.
the quote.
I screwed that up. That's all right. I'm so high on my team's greatness that I can't even remember quotes from Seinfeld. But here's the thing about Jordan Mason. I think the most important play is the one that did not show up in the stat sheet. He had a 38-yard passing touchdown from Brock Purdy, which got called back because of a garbage hold on George Kittle that shouldn't have been called.
I agree.
His receiving work, if you add that, all of a sudden, 75 receiving yards and another touchdown. He's a bona fide top 5 running back until Christian McCaffrey comes back.
Which, by the way, may not now they're saying November. Like, I guess he's back from the Germany.
Keeps getting pushed. Which
I don't know. It's
there's a chance we just don't see him.
Yeah. Right. Really. Yeah. Hopefully you just have Jordan Mason, and if you don't, then you didn't watch Fantasy Football Happy Hour in August.
No, you certainly did not. And look, I mean, and if you're trying to trade for him, like, he's running back 6. He's a top 10 fantasy running back.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, no one's trading him, right? It's over.
Trading. No, but and everyone's possible in a trade, but like you should value him as an RB1.
Yeah. Yep.
Like, I mean, like
I do.
I wouldn't trade him for less
him.
than top 7 player.
Our Sunday Scaries led by Breece Hall, Matthew, who just doesn't look right. It's scary for the Jets when every run to Braylon Allen looks so much better than every run to Breece Hall. Right?
By the way, 12% target share. Like, they're not even getting involved in the passing game. Like, it's the 4th worst fantasy game of his career.
It felt like the worst. He had 2 false starts, which took him off the field a couple times.
Running back 47 on the week, Connor. What's going on with this Jets offense? What's going on with Breece Hall?
It just feels like they're trying to get him going on the outside run game, and they're not blocking well in the outside run game. When they go north and south with Braylon Allen, it looks like a totally different unit.
But why can't Breece Hall do that too?
That's the biggest question. That's bad coaching right there. Yeah. Breece Hall's 226 pounds.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. The Jets need to really look themselves in the mirror and figure out why it's not working for their 2 best offensive players in Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall. But Allen Lazard, Braylon Allen, Mike Williams all look fine. Yeah. They have a giant red flag at offensive coordinator. Who could have saw that coming?
Brandon Aiyuk was a scary. I'm with you. Look, 1,000%. All right. Real quickly, a couple of bad performances that I'm not worried about. Brandon Aiyuk. Look, under 50 receiving yards every game this season. I get it, but I have to feel like we don't know what this Niners offense looks like. Like, we finally got Debo back. Like, if he has another bad game next week, then you can panic as well. But certainly a tough game. They play Arizona at home next week. Should be better. Brock Bowers is whatever. He's still like one of the best tight ends in fantasy. You're not allowed to get upset about a bad tight end game there. Fewest targets, catches, receiving yards in a game this season. It's just 11% target share in the last 2 games, but things will get better for Brock Bowers. I'm not convinced about that for Kyle Pitts. He's averaging under 7 fantasy points this season. He's averaging under 4 targets per game. His snap rate has decreased in every game this season. I did the same poll about Mark Andrews that I did about Kyle Pitts. Like, they're just not using him.
You can drop Kyle Pitts.
I think you can drop Kyle Pitts. Like, at some point, I don't make sense, but like, it's Darnell Mooney, it's Ray McLeod after Drake London. Don't get me started about Bijan, but like, honestly, like, it's a disaster for Kyle Pitts. Like, free Kyle Pitts. Get him to another team.
Yeah, the problem is he doesn't look like the same athlete he once was. That's where I'm concerned right now.
Falcons had no business winning that game.
No, believe me, they absolutely did not. Saints
are a better team.
Pissed it away.
Not only will the fantasy football pregame crew be in Pittsburgh, but so will Barry's boy Eights. CD and the boys are back in town to take on the Steelers in primetime Sunday, 7 Eastern on NBC and Peacock.
And we'll be at Applebee's earlier that morning.
Hell yeah. All right, we're taking our last break. When we're back, it's the last call. We got our Monday Night Football preview with, of course, our best bets for the doubleheader. DraftKings Sportsbook is the #1 place to bet touchdowns, and new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Download the app and use promo code Barry when you sign up. DraftKings Sportsbook, the crown is yours. It's time for last call. Let's take a look at the most bet Monday Night Football props on DraftKings right now. As you see the board right here, #1, Jahmyr Gibbs rushing yards at 60+, and then scattered with DK Metcalf receiving yards 70+, Geno Smith an alt passing line of 230.5, Amon-Ra St. Brown receiving yards 80+, Josh Wiley receiving yards over 7.5. Jay, what do you like tonight?
Like Will Levis, over 195.5 passing yards. He's averaged slightly over this for his career. And the key is the matchup against the Dolphins, who are the 26th best pass defense in the NFL by EPA per play so far, and the 5th best run defense. So this is a pass funnel offense. I think that Levis, just with how high variance a player he is, how much he throws the ball deep, I think that he can go over in a matchup where they're 2.5-point dogs.
And one of the guys that he's going to be passing to, Tony Pollard, his running back. I like the over 14.5 receiving yards for Tony Pollard. He's gone over this number in each of the last 2 games. And the one game he didn't was the first game where he got 12. By the way, double-digit target share for Pollard each of the last 3 games. So for me, Pollard, again, getting pressure. Wilt Levis likes to dump it off and get out. Honestly, really only need one. So give me over 14.5 for Tony Pollard here. On the Dolphins side of the ball, Achane and Tyreek Hill are the only guys you can really feel good about here. We need to see what this offense looks like under Tyler Huntley.
I'm looking at the other game, guys. I'm going to take Jackson Smith and Jigba over 4.5 receptions. They got to get him involved again. It's been the roller coaster for JSN. Slow week 1, great week 2, slow week 3. I think it trends back upwards in week 4. Gino's going to look to get JSN involved.
Yep, I like that. The key there, I think, too, is that Detroit play a ton of man coverage, which I think that JSN should thrive against. I know everyone's out on JSN because he didn't do anything last week, but the first couple of weeks he was top 5 in the NFL in terms of target share, and I think that he'll ride the ship. Last week was just a weird game. They were playing just the fake team in the Dolphins with their quarterback situation.
Gino very quietly has completed over 70% of his passes in every game this season. He's like a young Jayden Daniels out there.
Okay.
It's been unbelievable. No, honestly, but seriously, when he played Detroit last season, 23.1 fantasy points, 328 and 2 touchdowns. That was in week 2. This game always feels like it's kind of got sneaky shootout potential. I know both defenses are a lot better this.
Point total is 47.
Yeah,
that's pretty high.
No, I think. Listen, and you know who you're starting on each of these teams. But yeah, let's go JSN. Ken Walker makes his return after being injured for a couple of weeks. Listen, we're getting slapped like a grape. Ken Walker, JSN, I need you guys to get in there. And hopefully Tyler Lockett is just standing on the sideline waving at him. So anyway, there you go. It's closing time. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. For Jay Croucher, Connor Rogers, and all of us that got slapped like a grape this weekend, I'm Matthew Berry. We'll see you tomorrow. Good luck tonight. Peace out. Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and Rotoworld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest Rotoworld fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.